the new journey of Black entrepreneurship. Some really interesting stories I'm just going to put together, and then actually just probably open it up for a Q&A, and just kind of, because I'm sure there's some entrepreneurs in here and everybody's got their own kind of stories. So in that, y'all can see my screen. I'm trying to get this slide up. Why is it moving so slow? Okay. Let's see. Okay. I don't know. Let me try something else. Are we doing that? At the same time, I was gonna play some music for y'all, but my Wi-Fi is moving slow. So any entrepreneurs in here, y'all can unmute yourself in here if you are. That may help with the discussion. Any entrepreneurs in the room?
Yep.
Please say yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Online only or physical businesses, services? What kind of businesses?
Pre-startup, online primarily.
Okay.
With some real world meetups.
What's the name of it?
Amplius TV, Amplius Television Ventures. It is pre-startup at this point.
Okay, perfect. That's perfect. I'll talk a little bit about pre-startups.
Hey, Alvin, sorry to interrupt. I was wondering if there's anybody who's got a business on here, if they wanted to throw their info up in the chat. I always just would love to see who's in the room, and so we can follow and check it out.
Please do. That is important. That's part of what we want. There we go. Let's see now. One more time, y'all. And full view.
Tariq Livingstone, 1/2 Georgia. It's on emergency preparedness, survival, first aid, and firearms fundamentals and safety.
Any other businesses?
Yeah, Marcus Cobb, founder of Cobb-O-Matic.
Cobb-O-Matic, based out of?
Dallas, Texas.
Okay. Oh, you close by then. We're here in Northwest Arkansas. Let's try, man, what is going on with this? This is not right. Let's try this. Because I really want y'all to see what I got. I'm gonna try it like this for a second. I know it worked like this. All right. I know it'll work like this. So, first things first, and I'll try to get some more as I start getting the discussion. And the first thing is, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to talk to everybody. This is brought to you by Startup Junkie, and just something that we've just been wanting to put together as an educational and information webinar and discussion about what's happening in the Black community and entrepreneurship. And so we call it the new journey of Black entrepreneurship. I wanted to start it off with this quote: "The only impossible journey is the one that you never take," right? And so for me, my journey, I'll just speak on myself and where I've taken my own personal journey as an entrepreneur and what it's taken me. And people who, know me will say, yeah, I was a serial entrepreneur. I started DJing as a teenager. Back in college, I opened up a bookstore that was going out of business, so we reopened it up. But then we also took it online because we saw that's where sales were going. It was in 2003. The only thing was Amazon was only 5 years old, and PayPal may haven't existed or and many transactions online was through money order. So it was kind of pre-ahead, but it's where we are today, where everybody orders something online probably once a week. Then also too, in my career, I've been a pre-seed investor in startups, one particular called PartPick that was owned by some former Google employees, and she's doing really good right now in Atlanta there. And so that's kind of my early stage of investment. My day right now is as a program associate for the Kiva NWA program with the Startup Junkie Foundation. And what we do is help small businesses and entrepreneurs get some micro lending funding. As we're going to see, that is very crucial when you're dealing with traditional funding, always kind of against you. So with that, let's try this now and see if this works. Yes, that worked. I think my computer just had to slow down a little bit. Okay. So one of the things that I want to talk about is something that I found fascinating, was called the Golden Age. And this was a business historian, which I don't remember his name, but apparently he was quoted a few times. So this business historian was well known back in the early 20th industrial age. So this is the time where, imagine, you know, being the editor of Fast Company or Inc. magazine or Entrepreneur magazine, and you're talking about all of these fascination in industrial revolution and all of these different cities and things that's going on. And so he apparently called this 1900s and 1930s the golden age of Black businesses. And what he found out was Booker T. Washington had a Negro Business Council that had 600 chapters at its time, at its peak. Those were spanned all across the US. Their membership, they found even by 1920, tens of thousands of Black-owned businesses existed. From 1900 to 1914, it went from 20,000 to 40,000. So there was this period of people wanting to do business, you know, for themselves and their community. And this was, you know, right after slavery had ended. What we found out was a lot of those hubs in the cities was in places like Tulsa, Atlanta, Durham, Memphis, Washington, D.C., and even people was, you know, going in places like Little Rock and Chicago and Kansas City. And so in these places, that's where we would see a lot of these streets and neighborhoods that would have a sort of hub for Black business and ecosystem there. What was the type of businesses? Everything from insurance, drugstores, retail, clinics, barbershops, even an automaker, which apparently there's a story of a guy who may have invented the automobile before Henry Ford. And he actually had a plant in Ohio. So it was not someone just tinkering in their garage. He actually had a full plant and business making cars. And so this kind of golden age is what we see. And two fascinating people I want to highlight, because what I'm going to do in this kind of series is talk about different people. It's not going to be the same presentation, but it's going to be kind of different people that I'm going to pull out in history and modern examples. So this person, C.C. Spalding, came in as a guy who started the largest Black business in America. At the time, it had $40 million in assets at the time of his death in 1952. This is where the other term of Black Wall Street comes from in North Carolina. There's also, we know that there's the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, but there's also the Black Wall Street in North Carolina. And so North Carolina Mutual Life served thousands of African-American clients on life insurance because it was needed. What he found was there was a gap that was not being kind of a business model that was appealing to the African-American population. So was it, micro type of investments, $1 a week, or, small payments a month, but it was very big business, and it was one of the largest ones. Another person a lot of us see, and she has actually a Netflix series based on her, is Madam C.J. Walker. She's actually the first female self-made millionaire in America, and she was a well-known philanthropist. What's fascinating with Madam C.J. Walker is that she took a niche in her business approach. So she actually just said, let me service African-American women in hair care. And she created a brand, and it's even existing today. It's owned by Sundial Brands, which is owned Shea Moisture and some other companies, which is now in Walmart and all over. But Sundial Brands bought the original Madam C.J. Walker brand, and they actually bought the mansion that she had and turned it into a women's entrepreneur center, kind of a think tank center for women today. So such a fascinating person that came out of that era. And when we talk about that and say, wow, well, okay, we had these great businesses in this golden age from then. Where are the conditions and where are we at today? And what are, I guess, some of the challenges that we face? So one is, despite government assistance, even all the way back to the Roosevelt era, lack of funding remains the key thing. And that's, through traditional banks, so many different things. Systemic racism, systemic discrimination, that is a big play in it, because it has to do with hiring managers who allow people and opportunities who then may say, hey, I can service a business in my community, or, sales network. It's a real big thing. If you're in agricultural, or if you're in any type of business, there's a network that you kind of need, whether it's retail, there's groups of, networks that allow you to be a better merchant. And sometimes these discriminations was a major issue for Black businesses. Banking, as we know. And today, if we look at, there was a statistic that came across that I saw on the PPP loans recently, in 2020. 12% of the businesses received it. Okay, so 12% of the businesses that were Black owned that received from the PPP loan. Now, we're going to see why today, actually this week, the Biden administration literally yesterday announced that they're going to open up extension for minority and women-owned or Black-owned businesses for the PPP loan, because they know that some of them got squeezed out. And so it was real big news to say, hey, we're making sure from this time period, I think it's 2 weeks, all the way up into the next 2 weeks, that minority-owned businesses, freelancers, and contractors can go ahead and apply to kind of bump themselves up in the line. Because last year we saw people from Kanye West to Jared Kushner to Tom Brady receive, PP loans. And, it's not to say that, he who applies doesn't get it, but it was more of the businesses that need it. And as we see, we're going to see why these small businesses are so important, right? One report that I found was by the small SBA, said that minority-owned businesses experience higher interest rates and more loan denials. So not only being denied loans because, say, collateral issues and things like that, or their savings is not as much as other businesses, but they're also then getting loans at higher interest rates than others. So this is a double whammy on all of this when it comes to it. All right. And in 2007 to 2017, half of Black businesses were denied loans. All right. For that. And so that's some of the barriers that we see that's being placed. Let's talk about Reconstruction 2.0. So as I was talking to you about that kind of golden era, what does that look like today? What does the business and entrepreneurship look like today, as we know that we're facing these economic barriers? And I call it kind of the Reginald Lewis to Jay-Z approach or effect, right? Where we do see an increase in Black-owned businesses, African-American has increased by 60% in the last few years. It's a tremendous a lot of reasons behind that, but that's good news, right? And out of these minority-owned businesses, 949,000 of them, only 11% is Black-owned, right? So within the African community, there's an increase, but then when we look at the overall of minority businesses, there's still a shortage of 11%, right? Or there is only 11%, right? And so, 1 second. There you go. And so Black venture capital is the next part that fills this void. Because as more businesses and more entrepreneurs are starting businesses, they're going to need capital. And one of the best things is to get capital from people that understand, you know, what your mission is, what your approach is to business, and even sometimes what your target market is. So Black venture capital has been filling this void, similar to like the early insurance companies that we saw in the 20th century. So someone like the North Carolina Mutual was able to make such, you know, a amount of wealth because he saw a gap in the market towards, you know, the Black community. And that's what we're seeing with a lot of, you know, Black venture capitalists today, right? I work a lot in the VC tech world and entrepreneur world. I told you that I was an early investor in PartPick. And, you know, I'm dealing with entrepreneurs who have really big ideas. They had small teams. They sometimes, you know, 3 to 4 men and women to 10 men, women teams, you know, working on the bootstrap, but their ideas are billion-dollar ideas, $100, $1 million companies. And that's, you know, the upside of technology and innovation is it allows us to do these type of things, right? But what I've also noticed is that these entrepreneurs, as they're pitching their businesses to VC world, in the last few years, only 3% has been distributed to Black funders, you know? So billions of dollars is pouring in, but only 3% are going to founders who are actually doing, you know, things in places that we see. And out of that 3%, 1%, less than 1% out of this 3 is going to Black women founders. So, which is a, you know, a very untapped group itself that's underfunded, definitely. In 2020 alone, in the middle of the pandemic, $87 billion was in VC funding was circulated. Only $2 billion of that was raised from Black and Latinx founders, okay? So just kind of put that into context of where this is at. Now, another interesting news why I was saying this is the Reginald Lewis to Jay-Z effect is, well, first of all, is Reginald Lewis was the first African-American to own a $1 billion business, to create a business that turned into $1 billion. And he had a company that was based in Baltimore. It was really, really big in the 80s and 90s. And he actually had an early passing, but he, in a short amount of time, closed a deal that was worth $1 billion that instantly made his company, you know, one of the Fortune 500. Jay-Z, on the other end, recently in news, what we found out was he had purchased a few years ago a distressed champagne. And as we know, champagne and wine is grapes, you know, it's old grapes, but it's still grapes. Well, what he had found out was that the hip hop community was making some of these brands, luxury brands, so much money that why not invest it in himself? So he took a distressed champagne company, bought it, raised the price of the drink. I think it was only like $14 up to $300 because it was by Jay-Z. And now just week was sold 50% of that to Moet and Hennessy, right? Who are the, you know, world's largest alcohol distributors. Now, here's a question that comes in play as we talk about Black entrepreneurs. And let me give you the third example, Tristan Walker. Tristan Walker sold his company recently, Bevel, and moved it to Atlanta. It was based in Silicon Valley, but he wasn't a tech company, but he had tech investors. And Bevel is a razor shaver that he noticed men of color were receiving, razor bumps. So he created a product that was very niche. Everybody can use the razor, but he made it very niche to know that African-American men were having kind of skin bumps from a lot of the razors market that was in the market. So he got acquired and moved this company to Atlanta. Now that's the question of, is being acquired the answer? Do you want to build companies and then sell it? Are we building companies to keep it yourself, or are you, going to maintain 100% ownership, like, we'll do 50% like what Jay-Z did? The thing is not to look at some of these so emotional, that this wasn't a champagne company that he woke up and said that's, he's always wanted to do, right? Instead, he found an opportunity. And by finding an opportunity, that was a few years later, allowing him to, sell it at a profit. So that's kind of where is this going towards Black entrepreneurship in the 21st century, right? And it goes without saying, it starts with the small businesses, right? It starts with that practice and being able to identify what it is your passion is when you are in business. These are three fantastic local Northwest Arkansas entrepreneurs that I've come in contact with through the Kiva program. And one is Lamar, who has a auto detailing. He actually does it with some of the car lots in the area. Coretta, who has a horse and equine and, therapy for people for mental illnesses and stuff. Carl's got a construction company. As more in this area is growing, he's got a construction company that allows him to grow. And so, these are the businesses that day to day employ people, and they're showing that, there's a way to create an income for yourself and your family. So these are modern day, Black entrepreneurships at its finest, that we see. And I want to also highlight some other ones, because as we were talking about Jay-Z not being emotionally attached to, the champagne company, right? That's because you have to be able to look at things as a diversified portfolio. How are you able to diversify your market, right? If you are, if you notice that there's not enough gun ranges across the country that are owned by African Americans, then how do you tap into that market to bring people to want to get that experience? Because people drive, for Ruby Falls or national parks. People drive 3-4 hours to get an experience of something. So how can you create a business where there's an experience of what you're doing, right? And so and it can be golf, and rather than a Top Golf, how could you create a golf experience that is unique to how you see golf, right? And we see this from smoothie food trucks, where the menu has hip hop titles, to Slim and Husky, which is a Black-owned pizza franchise, the largest Black-owned pizza franchise. But if you look at the menu, it's, Slick Rick lyrics or Outkast lyrics or Dr. Dre or Snoop Dogg lyrics. That's the menu itself of this oven-baked pizza. And so how do you diversify in this kind of market? And so these are some that I found as well. Uncle Ernest, which if anybody knows the story of Jack Daniels, was the originator for Jack Daniels was a guy named Ernest, who had created the recipe for the Jack Daniels brand. And so the Jack Daniels estate recently has been giving recognition to Ernest, all right, who was the Black worker that was working for him. And so his family actually created their own whiskey brand as a branch off, and it's selling off the shelves all over, right? That's whiskey. Everybody who wants to drink whiskey. And I know the startup staff is, I'm surprised I haven't brought a bottle myself for one of our meetups, but it's a brand that they can make and can be long lasting, right? Calendly, for many years, I've used it and didn't know it was a Black-owned startup. It helps people with scheduling. They grew tremendously during the pandemic because what did everybody need to do was schedule Zoom calls and webinars. And so they created a service product that actually was good all around. And Rap Snacks, you know, is definitely breaking grounds in the food and beverage market. They are highlighting how you can use influencers for some of these food packaging. And so, you know, the thing is, the key is not just be a successful Black-owned business, but to be a successful business, right? And during COVID, these were the sectors that were hit the hardest. These 5 sectors was hit the hardest during COVID: hospitality, health, retail, food, arts, and entertainment. And so out of those 5 sectors, Black businesses represent, Black business revenue is 40% of that. So that means many of the Black businesses were in these 5 sectors that were hurt the most. Across the US, it was 25%, right? So it's just another case of showing the impact that, you know, things have for businesses. And let's get to some solutions, last few points, and we can open it up and just talk some things. I call it the art of the hustle. So what are the things that you want to do to navigate right now as an entrepreneur? You want to identify what your strengths are. You want to develop a team that is driven by results, not necessarily driven by, you know, likes or, you know, following or popularity or even, you know, money. You should be making money, but you should be driven by results, because results allow you to keep making money, right? And spend more time learning how to automate your business. This is by far one of the key things right now for owners, everybody. What are the automation on my Shopify apps? What are ways to outsource, delegate? How could I use voice technology for my business? So many, from inventory tracking to CRM to follow-ups to, you know, everything. How can you automate your business is you know, the homework of 2021. That is the homework of, if you haven't already started that by last year, you need to get on that now, because that's where a lot of time consumption is going to be going towards. And if you're on the financial part and you're finding a rut with businesses and loans and banks, seek non-traditional funding ways, right? Kiva is an option that we found is very good for entrepreneurs, grant opportunities, pitch competitions. One of the things that I saw PartPick do when they were early funds was they joined tons of pitch competitions and would win, you know, 25,000, 10,000, 5,000, you know, and all that adds up. Just be persistent on that. And lastly, develop a product that the market needs, right? You have to develop something that actually is going to be wanted during this time period. You know, it's a lot of different behaviors that are changing. What is your business? What is your product or your service doing that's adapting to that is the key part. Here's some things that I saw that corporations are doing that are adapting. There was a 15% pledge that's being taken, that's like a corporate responsibility initiative to support Black-owned brands. And it comes from, since the Black population is 15% of the US population, so how could 15% of these shelf spaces like Gap, Old Navy, Sephora, Crate and Barrel, a lot of these big retail, how could they represent that 15% by putting some of the local brands? And so that was an initiative that I saw is still in motion. A lot hasn't been measured or tracked. You know, a lot of questions. Well, if the brand wasn't selling well, do they take it off the shelf, right? And so questions like that come into play. Are they going to be able to hold some brands there so they can maintain a longer sustainability, or is it just, hey, we put it on there and, you know, it didn't sell? And so that's one of the questions that's coming out. And last thing, I'll just, you know, throw a nice shout out on the work that we're doing with Kiva and how it works and how we're helping small businesses get a 0% interest loan through micro lending. And we do it up to $15,000, and you can start paying it off in 3 months if you're approved for it. And it's definitely something that I've seen that saved a lot of businesses in the last few months and actually started some businesses. So I'm gonna leave it to that. That's my contact information. Anybody that wants to talk or ask questions is more than welcome to hear you out. Let's see. Hello? Okay. Yeah, if you want to say something, you can unmute yourself or ask a question. I'm not sure if there's a chat. I see a lot of little discussion. What's this? What's this?
Looks like we've got a lot of folks introducing themselves in the chat.
Perfect.
Yeah, but
Will it save it? How do we keep this?
Yeah, we can definitely save that.
Okay. Cobb Channel, Cobbmatic, I see you. Senior manufacturing, tuning in from London, England. Virtual reality for design engineers. Like that, wisdom from over there. Yeah. I guess one of the things for me was to see how interesting it was to know that there's been a spike recently, right? And a lot of that, you know, everyone's, I want to start a business, or they lost their job and they're now wanting to start a business and do something. It's not easy. It's a long road to get into it. And if with the hurdles we already know exist, imagine the hurdles that you personally will have to go through on your own, right? Whether it's with family and, you know, time and so many other things that come into play with it. But it's definitely worth it if you can see the rewards that make yourself happy. It's definitely worth sticking through.
Hey, Alvin, it's Martha.
Hello, Martha.
Hey, you know something, maybe if there's some people out there thinking about starting a business, maybe you could share with them some of the resources for free, you know, high quality small business consulting we have, like in Northwest Arkansas. And even though they're in other places, there are resources and to reach out to those free resources for assistance. I don't know, it might be something that.
No, that's a good thing, because I wanted to put that sort of like these kind of Y Combinators and incubators that exist in different cities, right? What you're saying, Martha, and that's very true.
And places like Startup Junkie and Capital Factory in Austin, and then the 900 SBDCs across the country that are free for everybody.
What I'm gonna do is I'll put a list together in my next presentation, and what I'll put it together before that and email it to everybody that joined, because I can send you these slides. But in the next one, what I'll do is dive into that, because that is what you're right, is that entrepreneurs can join these hubs. Because I've seen one, there was one Comcast in Atlanta, actually, a startup that I know. And what they join these hubs and they get resources. People can come in and give them feedback. People can come in and say, you know, we've got engineers that we'll loan to you or stuff like that. And so they are very helpful. And sometimes a lot of them get investment from those hubs as well. So there is quite a few of those that exist in different places. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Hey there.
Pamela's,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Pamela has a question in the chat. She asked, what industries do you think present an opportunity to start a new business?
Wow. What industries? I do have some. Anything to do with cryptocurrency, for like blockchain, I would suggest. Industries for physical spaces, I'll start with that one. I think co-work spaces is still being underrated. I think that as things open back up, people are going to want to kind of work in different places and kind of get out the house, even if their job doesn't say not to come back to the headquarters. So I think these kind of co-work space on a physical place. Other businesses and services, I just think kind of it's going to be very niche as far as brands, right? So that's the good part. Your candles and your mugs or your clothing, things that people are going to get more niche and as people can make those things from home and kind of create businesses. So your Etsy kind of audience is actually going to increase, I think, because why would I go to Target to get a tray with quotes on it when I can support a local person with it, right? So I think if you're looking at retail and niche things like that, it's going to be very good. If you're looking for services and service-based, I think things like a mobile laundry would be good. Like anything that can bring it to people is what I think is going to be key in kind of those kind of industries. Anything, Myers?
This is Cassandra from Atlanta.
Hey, Cassandra, how you doing?
Good. The tech accelerators that Martha mentioned, like Capital Factory, and even some of the co-working spaces like WeWork,
Mm-hmm.
can be great. However, they're not always great for Black people.
Mm-hmm.
So when I won a year-long residency at WeWork in Austin, Texas, and the issue that I had was that when you went in there, it's supposed to be this hub of innovation and where people can connect. Me and the only other Black guy in there, the only people connected with each other. We walked in there and people automatically felt that whatever we were building was not techie enough to be a part of what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I found it to be, I pretty much went to WeWork twice during that year and I stopped going. So I'm interested in hearing what you say about certain, how people can make those co-working spaces more welcoming to Blacks, especially Blacks not in tech, because those incubators tend to be geared towards, I got an app, great,
Yep.
come on in.
Yep.
Y Accelerator, I got an app. Even Inc. In Austin, which is supposed to be geared for minority co-founders and founders. Even Div Inc. is geared towards tech and tech only. So if you don't have, and that's what, based on what you said, it was 40%, then you're kind of out of luck.
Right.
Because
so that's interesting, because if it's only 3% that's being funded, but then like you're saying, out of those percent, there's so much that hasn't even been, considered, right? So no, you're absolutely right about that. And I will say a good story and a kind of advice along with that. So there was a mother-daughter startup that I came across. They were based out of Nashville, Tennessee, called Mixtras. To help with meetup and in-person events and conferences and things like that. And in Nashville, they just ran into a wall with support from Nashville, support from the local funding, the tech community. They were two Black women, and they were very smart. They had the expertise, background, and everything to really do what they wanted to do. And one day I looked in the news and they had moved to Montgomery, Alabama. And what I found out is they had moved to Montgomery, Alabama because there was a hub there that not only accepted them, gave them local press, and the mayor was in the news for encouraging Black-owned businesses and things and highlighting this hub. That's unique because they were willing to move from Nashville to Montgomery, and they've actually enjoyed it more so. They got the funding, they've got the support. But if they were in this chat right now, they'll tell us 2-3 years of complete denial or pushback or, no support. So that is a big issue. I think from what you were saying on the tech front, maybe if it's not these hubs that are real tech high centered, but maybe women owned, or I see that you have a veteran owned business too. So like military veteran owned businesses, maybe there's just, different resources that particularly help those kind. But it is tough. It is.
Yeah,
Austin
and
has a
Alvin,
good.
the SBDC. So if you just wherever you're at in the country, if you type in America's SBDC, Small Business Development Center, those are all funded by the SBA, which has specific targeted programs for minorities, for veterans, for women. Those centers are supposed to be very open and inclusive. They're open to anyone who lives in their region. Like Arkansas, we have 7 of them. So those should be located in places. And then, we're just lucky in Northwest Arkansas. We have Startup Junkie Foundation that has specific targeted programs for minorities and women. And then we have Venture Noir, which is a Black business incubator that provides services. So just, keep searching, and anything that's funded by the SBA is supposed to be targeted to assist minorities, whether it's not, that's terrible if it's not, because that's why the government is funding those programs.
Mm-hmm.
Could I say something?
Sure, Mark.
Yeah. Was that Miss Cassandra who just spoke about the incubators? Okay. I'm in the same state as her. I'm in Dallas. To piggyback off what she said about the co-working, I too experienced that, I would say about 2 years ago, because I used to live in Austin. That was about maybe 5-6 years ago. Now, I'm in the process of joining a Black-owned co-working space here in Dallas. She's very well known. I could send you her information. Hopefully she has wealth of knowledge of other co-working Black-owned spaces. There's a lot of them. They're in Atlanta, and there's so many of them. So hopefully I can connect you with her and go from there. But it's a big difference in a predominantly Black-owned co-working space and the alternative. The wealth of resources that are geared towards us and to, other businesses are really different. With this one, it's not so much a lot of tech companies. There's wealth of overall different types of businesses there. And it's just been very refreshing. It's benefited my business in so many ways. And so I agree with her 100% of how that goes around. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Hey, definitely, if you could share the contact, when I'm gonna put the list together of all of these kind of hubs and places for people to have it as a resource base.
Yes.
So that's very good. Yeah, that's where we saw what's happening with the Black Wall Street. There were these places where people would centrally have the support that they needed to do it. Now, that doesn't mean that the business that we're creating or building are only for the Black market, right?
Correct.
It's just, what are the resources to learn more, to get the access, just as if you was any other kind of, business owner itself. Any other questions or comments? Any other thing anybody want to chime in and say?
Yes, I want to add a follow-up to what you said about Mixed Rose. Mixed Rose is one of the few Black female companies that have raised over $1 million in capital. Mm-hmm. I think it's only been 10 to date, which is a sad thing that only 10 Black female-owned companies have raised more than $1 million, and they're one. But they are still an app. They were just part of the announced as part of the Amex 100. They were just given a $50,000 grant, which is still open for everybody. And to piggyback on what Martha said, I have gone to my local SBDC, and they have been nothing short of fabulous. Mine has a financial consultant on board who has a 25-year history with banks. So he has been guiding me through that process. I wouldn't be where I am today without him. And the other resource that people may want to consider is, it's been a mixed bag, is SCORE. I've had 2 SCORE advisors, one in Michigan and one in Georgia. And my 2 advisors, between the 2 of them, have been, they have given me keys, things that I would have never known about government contracting. So they're not, it's a mixed bag. And so I would tell people, don't just go in to SCORE and just take whoever, and just whoever they send you. I went and did some research. And when I did the research, I figured out who I want to be with based on their skill sets. And it has paid off for me.
Fantastic. Wow. Huh. And your business is, you didn't explain what your business. I see it, I can read it, but I guess.
Well, Taylor the Code. Yes, Taylor's Code. I'm a 24-year military veteran. When I transitioned out, it was scary. It was quite scary. Military folks tend to be more unemployed veterans than the regular population, and therefore that leads to homelessness as well as unemployment and underemployment. So to transition right now, one of the biggest industries that boomed, one of the industries that did not have any problems for the most part during this pandemic was tech. So we're taking veterans to transition out of the military, and we're training them into 3 disciplines, either cybersecurity, the hardware side, IT, or the software side, including Python, Linux, Ruby on Rails. We train them 15 weeks, and then we put them out, but we're not putting them out to Amazon and Facebook, but to small businesses, because we think that, we know that small businesses cannot compete deliberately send them out to where they come from small or middle-sized companies, towns. About 63% come from smaller America. So we're trying to back out to places where they can rebuild smaller economies.
Absolutely. That's fantastic, man, company. I'm gonna follow you some more and see where we definitely can help out in any kind of way.
We also have another question in the chat. Wendy asks, what are your thoughts on balancing a 9-to-5 with your new small business? My name is Wendy Williams. I recently started a luxury personal shopping consulting business called Wendy with the I LLC. Yeah,
so your 9-to-5 pays the bills, and your 6 to 12 is, working on your dreams. I think that it's definitely important to do. I think that that's a question that's for everybody always asking, kind of, when should you do it, or when should you jump out and do it? And it's really the most customized thing for you. It depends on where you are for a lot of different reasons. But if you do have the chance to work on your business, definitely this is the time to do that, because there's so many people that's taking this chance right now to work on side business and turning them into real businesses, not just kind of, hustles. Anything else? Just free indeed here. Fantastic. I want everybody to make sure, this next one that I'm going to do, when we do it on the dates, it's going to be completely different kind of topics and discussions, and just please share with other people, let everybody know. And if you have any questions or anything about businesses or small businesses, contact Startup Junkie. If you want to know about small business micro lending loans, contact us at Kiva NWA. We're a great team that will follow up with us. We have a podcast that offers a lot of resources and kind of good discussions for entrepreneurs. And so I appreciate everyone for tuning in and just having this opportunity to listen and learn, talk to each other.
Quick question for you.
Sure.
I'm Marilyn Rames. I had put in a chat that I'm the founder of Teachers Who Pray, and I'm down here in Northwest Arkansas right now from Chicago to do a PhD in education policy at the University of Arkansas. And I'm just wondering if you guys work with nonprofits as well as for-profit businesses, and if so, you had any thoughts about that sector, and any off the top of your head advice for fundraising, etc.
Yeah, no, we do. The Startup Junkie does work with nonprofits. They do consult with that. More than welcome to schedule consultation to talk more on from that. What I think that's a very interesting model of organization, period, that what you're doing. I think it's important. As we know, it's tons of discussions on faith, dealing with education, you know, with teachers, and just overall where society is going with that. So I think it's a useful organization. Fundraising ideas, of course, you starting with your teachers, but I think with something in this kind of sector is education. What exactly is educators of faith, right? And kind of, you know, what does that mean, and what are the resources are you helping with those who are both, right? And is it one particular faith, or is it all different faiths? And so I think it's very good. I think Teachers Who Pray, you got the .org, you got the domain name, so that's really good. So you definitely can do a lot of landing pages, email signups. I probably would do a lot of email signups right now to just get your audience together, or your teachers together.
And Alvin, I'll just hop in too. So
Yes, Morgan.
Marilyn, I'm Morgan, and I work with Alvin at Startup Junkie, and we don't, we're not actually technically funded to consult with nonprofits, but I would love to hop on a call and share with you just some local resources and information that I'm aware of. And so I actually put my calendar link up in the chat, so you can just click on that, pick a time that works best for you. And like I said, we're more targeted, you know, to support businesses and for-profits, but there are a lot of the same principles apply. And I have, you know, there's a lot of great resources in Northwest Arkansas that I'm really happy to point you to. So
Thank you.
To connect, of course.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. Not the population. Okay, I see where we're at, Wendy. Wendy with the eye. Any other questions? Please throw them in, or more than welcome. And Morgan did provide her Calendly link, so you can schedule time. Oh, there was
Alvin.
Yes.
I'm going to jump in really quick. Thank you very much for that information. I really appreciate it. It was very informational for me. And I'm just going to speak really quickly because I know we don't have that much time. But coming from a family traditionally, a Black family traditionally that, again, worked a 9 to 5, right? So I'm transferring into this entrepreneurial world. And so you gave some good information about the golden ages. And so a lot of times when I hear this information, it's kind of blanketed information about they did this, they could do this. Can you provide any resources, books, or things to follow where we can get more detail about how they did it? Because like you said, there were so many limitations and barriers in how they did it. But I think if we give the specifics, even some of the things you provided here about the incubators and the resources and companies that can support you. But I think if we know where we came from in regards to specifics about how they did it, I know for me, it would be helpful in my process.
Yes, definitely, Kavan. I appreciate you for joining in. I do have some books. I have one particularly called The Color of Money, which is a good one, that talks about that. Another one called Powernomics is really good, by Claude Anderson. And I do have some more. I will share a couple of lists. But those are some good ones right there. What kind of business do you have?
So, well, two things. One, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I am starting my own practice, and not just seeing clients, which is awesome, but outside of that is really lending my expertise and working in the community-based field, working with adolescents and children, really informing state agencies and companies about how to work with families, also consulting agencies about organizational, like work people, how to work around them, how to get them motivated. Also, I'm co-founder of an organization called Black Men Heal, where we provide 8 free therapy sessions for men of color. It's based out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, but we have branched out to New York, Maryland, Virginia, Georgia, and hopefully throughout the states or internationally. So those are the 2 things that I'm
What do you think as a business owner is something that you would need to kind of work on that is non what you're expertise is, right? So you're good at the counseling and the therapy and that. But as a business owner, what is the one hat? Is it marketing? Is it content creation? Is it automation? What would you say is one thing? Because I think that's where people can start with a lot.
Right. I think that's a great question. I think I'm still trying to tease it out, especially when you talked about the niche, and I've heard that before. Like, what is your niche, Kavana? What is that one thing that you can provide that somebody else doesn't have, right? And so maybe it's that content piece. So yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out.
Gotcha. Everybody does. Wonderful. Wonderful. All righty. Well, anybody else want to chime in? Last 2 minutes, or questions or comments? There's a lot of people in here. You don't have to be quiet. Any questions? You saw the email and the information to contact any of us. All righty. Cool. Caleb, should I go ahead and end it, or?
Looks good. Yep, I will wrap it up. I'll end it.
All right, everybody. Thank
Thanks
you
for
very
joining
much.
us.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.